Welcome to the sleepy underworld, a place where romance blooms, magic sparkles, and timeless fairy tales are reimagined for the dreamers of today. From heart-stirring romances to spellbinding adventures, every story is a soothing escape into a realm of love, wonder, and charm. So curl up, press play, and let us carry you away to the land of dreams. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. We'd love to know in what part of the world you are watching and what is your favorite tip for a good night's sleep. Thank you for watching and enjoy the video. You were supposed to be my pawn. Instead, you became my queen. The night I met Duke Raphael Fairington was the coldest of the year. Frost crawled across the broken windows of my attic room, and my breath hung in the air like the ghosts of words I'd never speak. I huddled beneath threadbare blankets, counting the coins I'd earned that week. Not enough. Never enough. A knock shattered the silence. Not the timid tap of my landlord, but 3 sharp raps that commanded attention. I paused, knife already in hand. A girl from the Ash District didn't survive without steel close by. Who is it? My voice didn't waver. I'd learned long ago that showing fear was the same as showing your throat. Open the door, Ms. Vivienne Laurent. I have a proposition that won't wait for morning. I knew that voice. Everyone in Verendale knew that voice. Deep, cultured, with the subtle accent of old nobility. Duke Raphael Fairington, the Kingmaker, the man who put the current monarch on the throne and, if rumors were true, could just as easily remove him. I opened the door just enough to see him. He stood alone in the dim hallway, no guards, no entourage, just a tall figure draped in a midnight cloak, with eyes the color of steel and just as unforgiving. "How did you find me?" I asked. His lips curved into something too sharp to be a smile. "I make it my business to find useful things. May I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. What choice did I have? If the Duke of Fairington wanted me dead, I would already be. He entered my small room, his gaze sweeping over the sparse furnishings, the rickety table, the single chair, the bed with its pile of blankets. He didn't comment on the poverty. Instead, he studied me with the careful attention of a man assessing a weapon. "Your reputation precedes you, Ms. Laurent." I kept my expression neutral. I wasn't aware I had one. The girl who predicted the Northern Rebellion 3 months before it happened. The same girl who manipulated the grain merchants into lowering their prices last winter. The orphan who somehow acquired enough blackmail to make Lord Kendrick release 3 innocent men from his private dungeon. He removed his gloves with deliberate slowness. "You have quite a gift for anticipating the movements of power." My heart hammered against my ribs. Those activities weren't exactly legal. "You've been misinformed." "I'm never misinformed." He placed a small velvet pouch on my table. It landed with the distinctive clink of gold. "I want you to work for me." "Doing what?" "Advising me, reading people, seeing the patterns I might miss." I didn't reach for the gold. Why would the great Kingmaker need help from someone like me? Because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Because you've survived in the Ash District when most would have perished. Because you understand hunger. Not just for food, but for power. His eyes locked with mine. And because you hate the nobility almost as much as you want to join them. My fingers curled into fists. He'd stripped me bare with a few sentences, and we both knew it. "What's the real reason?" I pressed. Something dangerous flickered in his expression. "War is coming. I need people I can use, but who aren't already bought by my enemies. And if I refuse, then I leave, and tomorrow you'll receive notice that your landlord has doubled your rent. The merchants you frequent will suddenly find reasons not to serve you. The constables will take a special interest in your activities." He shrugged. "Or you can take the gold, pack whatever meager possessions you value, and come with me tonight to a new life in Fairington Palace. Your choice, of course." "No choice at all." I took the pouch. "I'll need 10 minutes to pack." His smile was a cold, victorious thing. "I've just acquired my most valuable piece yet." I didn't know then that I was meant to be his pawn. Fairington Palace sprawled atop the city's highest hill, a monument to old money and older blood. Its black stone walls absorbed light rather than reflected it, as though the very building hungered. Guards watched from every tower, and rumors claimed that the gardens grew poisonous flowers cultivated for the Duke's personal use. The Duke led me through halls that could have housed every family in the Ash District. Servants scurried out of his path, their eyes downcast. None questioned my presence, though my shabby clothes marked me as an outsider. "These will be your quarters," he said, opening a door to reveal a suite larger than the entire building I'd just left. "My chamberlain will bring you suitable attire. You'll join me for dinner in 3 hours, where I'll explain your duties." Before I could respond, he left, the door closing with quiet finality behind him. The rooms were luxurious beyond anything I'd experienced. A sitting area with plush chairs, a bedroom with a canopy bed, and a private bathing chamber with hot running water. I stood frozen, afraid to touch anything, convinced this was an elaborate trap. A knock announced the chamberlain, a thin, sour-faced man who looked at me like I was something unpleasant stuck to his shoe. "His Grace requests your presence at dinner. I've brought clothing more appropriate." He gestured to the garments draped over his arm. "Do you require assistance with dressing, or can you manage?" The condescension in his tone sparked my temper. "I've been dressing myself since I was 3, thank you. I think I can manage buttons and laces without noble instruction." His lips thinned. "Very well. A maid will escort you to the dining room at the appropriate time." After he left, I approached the clothing with caution. It was a gown of deep emerald, simple by noble standards, but finer than anything I'd ever touched. The fabric was soft against my skin, a dangerous comfort. I'd learned early that comfort made you vulnerable. When I entered the dining room 3 hours later, the Duke was already seated at the head of a table long enough to seat 20. Only 2 places were set, his and mine, directly to his right. No other guests, no buffer between us. He stood as I entered, his gaze traveling from my face to the hem of my gown in a single, assessing sweep. "The green suits you," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Though we'll need to acquire a full wardrobe, you'll be accompanying me to court functions." I took my seat cautiously. I doubt the nobility will welcome someone from the Ash District at their gatherings. "They will, if I say they will." He poured wine into my glass, a surprisingly egalitarian gesture. "But you're right to be concerned, which is why, from this moment forward, you are no longer from the Ash District. You are my distant cousin from the western provinces, come to court to expand your education." No one will believe that. People believe what serves them. The ambitious will see you as a route to my favor. The curious will invent wild stories about your past. The suspicious will waste time investigating a fictional background I've already established. He sipped his wine. "By the time anyone learns the truth, you'll have gathered enough secrets to ensure their silence." The food arrived, course after course of delicacies I couldn't name. I ate sparingly, suspicious of both poison and my own untested stomach. "Your first task," Raphael said as servants cleared the main course, "is to attend tomorrow's council meeting. Say nothing. Watch everyone. Afterward, tell me who's lying, who's afraid, and who's planning to betray me." "How am I supposed to know who's planning to betray you?" His smile was knife-sharp. "You survived the Ash District by reading people before they could hurt you. Do the same tomorrow, but instead of protecting yourself, you'll be protecting me. And if I'm wrong, then I'll know you're not as valuable as I thought." The threat hung between us. I met his gaze steadily. "And what do I get in return? Besides room and board in your fortress? Safety, power, a monthly stipend generous enough to make you wealthy within a year?" He leaned forward. "But most importantly, you get revenge." "Revenge?" "On the system that forced you to fight for scraps while others feasted. On the nobles who pretend they're superior by accident of birth. On everyone who ever looked through you as if you were invisible." His voice dropped lower. "Work with me, Vivienne, and I'll give you the tools to dismantle everything you hate." His words burrowed into me like hooks. He'd identified the hunger that kept me alive all these years. Not just for food or safety, but for justice, for retribution. "Why would you want to dismantle a system that benefits you?" I asked. "I never said I wanted to dismantle it. I said I'd give you the tools." His eyes glittered. "What you choose to destroy or build with those tools is your affair." I didn't trust him. Couldn't trust him. But I recognized the opportunity he offered. A chance to climb high enough to never fall back into the gutter. "I'll do it," I said. "But I'm not your pawn, Your Grace. Remember that." His laughter was unexpectedly genuine. "My dear Vivienne, everyone is someone's pawn. The only question is whether you'll be worth sacrificing." The council chamber hummed with tension. 12 men and women, all nobility, all with decades of political experience, gathered around a massive oak table. I sat in the corner, ostensibly as the Duke's secretary, ignored by most but watched warily by a few. Duke Raphael commanded the room from the moment he entered, his presence filling the space like smoke. He didn't raise his voice or make grand gestures. He didn't need to. Power clung to him like a second skin. "The king requires additional funds for the northern campaign," said Lord Mercer, a florid man with nervous hands. "His Majesty suggests a temporary increase in the luxury tax." "Temporary taxes have a way of becoming permanent," replied Lady Thornfield, her aged face pinched with disapproval. "Perhaps His Majesty should consider his personal expenditures before reaching deeper into our coffers," added Baron Wells, a thin man whose eyes never quite settled on any one person. The discussion continued, voices rising and falling, alliances shifting with each topic. I watched them all, noting every twitch, every hesitation, every glance. Raphael spoke rarely, asking pointed questions that disrupted what seemed like carefully rehearsed arguments. Through it all, he appeared relaxed, even bored. But I caught the sharp attention in his eyes as he catalogued reactions just as I did. Afterward, he took me to his private study, a room lined with books and maps, with windows overlooking the city below. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid and handed one to me. "Tell me," he said, settling into a leather chair. I remained standing, more comfortable on my feet. "Lord Mercer is skimming from the treasury. He flinched when taxation was mentioned and couldn't meet your eyes when discussing northern expenses. Go on." "Lady Thornfield hates you but fears you more. Baron Wells is reporting to someone else." He kept glancing at the door as if expecting interruption or rescue. I continued through each council member, detailing what I'd observed. With each assessment, Raphael's expression grew more pleased. "And what am I thinking right now?" he asked when I finished. "That I passed your test, but you're already planning the next one. You're wondering how to use me most effectively while ensuring I remain dependent on you." I sipped the drink, hiding my grimace at its strength. "And you're deciding whether I'm more valuable as a hidden weapon or a visible deterrent." Impressive. He leaned forward. "What would you do if you were me?" "Keep me hidden. The moment your enemies know I exist, they'll try to turn me against you or eliminate me. My value is in my anonymity. And yet, I've already introduced you as my cousin. A perfect cover. Family is expected to be loyal. No one will question my presence at your side. His smile was slow and pleased. You'll do, Vivienne Laurent. You'll do very well indeed. It was the first time he'd looked at me with something close to respect, and I felt a dangerous warmth spread through my chest. I crushed it immediately. Attachment was weakness, and I couldn't afford weakness with this man. Weeks passed, then months. I attended meetings, balls, diplomatic functions, always at Raphael's side, always watching, listening, gathering information. I learned the language of court, the slight incline of a head that indicated agreement, the positioning of hands that signaled secret alliances, the cadence of speech that betrayed lies. Each night, I reported to Raphael. Sometimes in his study, sometimes over private dinners, occasionally while walking through the palace gardens. He listened intently, asked probing questions, and adjusted his strategies based on my observations. Gradually, the palace staff stopped watching me with suspicion. The nobility began to court my favor, hoping for access to the Duke. I acquired fine clothes, jewels, and my own small staff. From the outside, I appeared to be a fortunate relation, enjoying the Duke's generosity. Only Raphael and I knew the truth, that I had become indispensable to him, that, increasingly, his decisions were shaped by my counsel. But proximity to Raphael came with dangers I hadn't anticipated. I began to notice things beyond his political machinations. The way his voice deepened when we were alone, the rare, genuine smile that transformed his face, the protective way he positioned himself between me and perceived threats. Worse, I began to look forward to our evening meetings, to find reasons to seek his company, to wonder about the man beneath the calculated exterior. It was dangerous ground. Love was a lie, a weakness exploited by the powerful. I'd learned that lesson watching my mother waste away after my father abandoned us. I'd reinforced it with every betrayal I'd witnessed in the Ash District. Power was the only reliable currency, the only true protection. Yet something about Raphael pulled at me, perhaps because he never pretended to be anything but what he was: ambitious, calculating, and utterly ruthless in pursuit of his goals. The first assassination attempt came 6 months after my arrival. A poison cup meant for Raphael at a diplomatic reception. I noticed the servant's nervous demeanor and knocked the goblet from his hand before he could present it. The resulting chaos was contained quickly. The servant was dragged away for questioning. Raphael showed no reaction beyond a slight tightening around his eyes, continuing his conversation with the Penderan ambassador as if nothing had happened. That night, he came to my quarters instead of summoning me to his study. He dismissed my maid with a gesture and closed the door behind him. "You saved my life today," he said without preamble. I shrugged. "If you die, my position here becomes precarious." "Is that all?" He moved closer, his gaze intent on my face. "Isn't that enough?" I kept my voice steady despite the sudden acceleration of my pulse. "Perhaps." He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek in a touch so light it might have been imagined. "But I think there's more." I stepped back. "Don't mistake self-interest for affection, Your Grace." "Raphael," he corrected. "When we're alone, I want you to call me Raphael." "Why?" "Because I tire of titles and formality with you. Because you're the only person in this palace who sees me clearly and doesn't flinch away." His voice dropped lower. "Because I want to hear my name on your lips." The air between us thickened with tension. I knew I should retreat further, maintain the professional distance that kept both of us safe. Instead, I held my ground. "Raphael," I said, testing the shape of it. "It changes nothing. I still serve at your pleasure, and you could discard me at any moment." Is that what you think? He laughed, a short, harsh sound. Vivienne, you've embedded yourself so thoroughly in my operations that removing you now would be like cutting off my right hand. You'd survive it. But I wouldn't prefer it. He reached for me again, and this time I didn't back away. His hand cupped my jaw, his thumb tracing my lower lip. Just as I would have survived the poison today, but preferred your intervention. The warmth of his touch sent dangerous currents through my body. I couldn't allow this vulnerability, this need. Yet I couldn't bring myself to pull away. What do you want from me? I whispered. Everything, he answered simply. But I'll start with honesty. Before I could respond, he stepped back, breaking the charged moment between us. We've identified who sent the assassin. Lord Keller, acting on behalf of interested parties across the border. I'll deal with him tomorrow. His tone shifted back to business. I need you to investigate Lady Thornfield. She's been unusually quiet lately, which suggests she's planning something significant. And just like that, the moment was gone, locked away behind his impenetrable facade. I told myself I was relieved. I lied. The seasons turned. My influence grew alongside my understanding of court politics. What had begun as simple observation evolved into active participation. I suggested alliances, drafted policies, even represented the Duke at minor functions when he was occupied elsewhere. The nobility stopped seeing me as Raphael's poor relation and began treating me as a power in my own right. Some tried to court my favor with gifts and flattery. Others attempted to undermine me with rumors and petty sabotage. I navigated it all with the skills I'd honed in the Ash District, where the dangers had been more direct but no less deadly. Raphael and I developed a partnership unlike anything I'd imagined. During the day, we were the Duke and his trusted advisor, maintaining a proper distance. At night, in the privacy of his study or my quarters, the lines blurred. We talked for hours, not just about politics, but about books, philosophy, our pasts. He told me about his childhood as the second son, never expected to inherit until his brother's death thrust him into a position he'd never wanted, but was determined to master. I shared selective stories from the Ash District, enough to explain my skills without revealing all my vulnerabilities. The tension between us grew, acknowledged but never acted upon. Sometimes his hand would linger on mine when passing documents. Sometimes I'd find myself standing too close, breathing in the sandalwood scent of him. We circled one another like wary predators, neither willing to strike first. Until the night everything changed. War had been brewing for months with neighboring Pandara. Raphael had been working tirelessly to prevent it, preferring to solve the territorial dispute through negotiation rather than bloodshed. Not from compassion, he explained, but because war was expensive and unpredictable. That night, a messenger arrived with news that Penderan troops had crossed the border. The king immediately called his advisors to an emergency session. I attended as always, watching from my corner as arguments erupted around the table. We must strike back immediately. Lord Keller pounded the table. Show them we won't tolerate such aggression. Perhaps we should verify the reports before committing troops, Raphael countered. The weather at the border has been poor. It could be a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Lady Thornfield's voice dripped with scorn. Your caution borders on cowardice, Duke Fairington. I saw the trap closing around him. If he advocated for peace, they'd paint him as weak. If he supported immediate retaliation, he'd be responsible for a potentially costly war. Either way, his enemies within the council would win. Without planning to speak, I found myself on my feet. If I may, your majesties, my lords and ladies. All eyes turned to me, some surprised, others annoyed at my interruption. I've received information that may be relevant to this discussion. Raphael's gaze sharpened, but he gave me a subtle nod. We hadn't discussed this. I was improvising, risking both our positions. Our sources in Pandara suggest this incursion might be the work of a mercenary group hired to provoke exactly this reaction, I said smoothly, fabricating with every word. They seek to force us into a costly war that would weaken both kingdoms, leaving us vulnerable to opportunistic neighbors. Murmurs spread around the table. I pressed on. I propose we send a small, elite force to investigate these reports while presenting a unified diplomatic front. This demonstrates both strength and wisdom. What sources in Pandara? Lord Keller demanded. I've heard nothing of this. I smiled serenely. That's why there are sources, my lord, not yours. A few chuckles broke the tension. The king, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. An interesting suggestion, Lady Vivienne. Duke Fairington, what say you? Raphael's face revealed nothing of his thoughts. I believe Lady Vivienne's proposal has merit, Your Majesty. It allows us to respond to the provocation without committing to full-scale war prematurely. The discussion shifted, my interruption providing a middle path that appeased both hawks and doves. By the end of the meeting, the king had approved a combined approach of limited military response and diplomatic outreach, exactly what Raphael had wanted but couldn't directly propose. As we left the council chamber, Raphael took my elbow, guiding me through the corridors with more haste than dignity. He didn't speak until we reached his study, the door firmly closed behind us. What sources in Pandara? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. None, I admitted, but it's a plausible explanation that serves our purposes. Our purposes? His eyebrows rose. When did you start sharing my purposes, Vivienne? I lifted my chin. The moment you made me your advisor. Unless you prefer I stand silent while your enemies maneuver you into an untenable position. For a long moment, he stared at me, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he laughed. A genuine, unguarded sound I'd heard only a handful of times. Do you know what you've done? He asked, amusement dancing in his eyes. You've just committed us to producing evidence of mercenary involvement. Evidence that doesn't exist. Then we'll create it, I said simply. Send agents to the border. Have them find convenient proof of outside interference. And if they find actual Pandaren troops instead, then we adjust our strategy, but at least we've bought time. He shook his head, still smiling. You're either going to make me the most powerful man in the kingdom, or get us both executed for treason. Why not both? I quipped, though preferably in the correct order. He moved toward me then, purpose in every step. I held my ground, my heart hammering as he stopped only inches away. Do you know why I brought you here, Vivienne? He asked, his voice low. Because I'm useful. Because you're extraordinary. His hand came up to cup my face. Because you see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Because you never flinch from necessary actions. Raphael. Because you're the only person I've met who matches me. His thumb traced my cheekbone. The only one I can't seem to keep at a safe distance. The heat of his palm against my skin broke something loose inside me. A wall I'd built brick by brick since childhood. I'd told myself that what I felt for him was a pragmatic alliance, then reluctant respect, then cautious friendship. All lies I'd needed to protect myself. There is no safe distance from you, I whispered. I've tried to find it. His other hand slid around my waist, pulling me closer. Stop trying. When his lips met mine, it wasn't the gentle exploration I might have expected. It was hunger and recognition and challenge all at once. I responded, my fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. We came together like a storm breaking, years of tension and restraint shattering in an instant. His hands mapped my body with desperate urgency. and mine sought the warmth of his skin beneath layers of formal clothing. He lifted me onto his desk, sending papers scattering to the floor. Neither of us cared. My legs wrapped around his waist as he trailed kisses down my throat, his hands working at the laces of my gown. I've wanted this, wanted you, since that first night in the council chamber, he murmured against my skin. You stood in the corner, watching everyone, and I knew you saw the same patterns I did. I gasped as his teeth grazed my collarbone. I thought you only valued my observations. I valued everything about you. Your mind. Your courage. His hand slid beneath my skirts, finding bare skin. Your fire. Words gave way to sensation as we lost ourselves in one another. Later, we would move to his bedchamber, taking our time to explore more thoroughly. But that first joining was raw and urgent, a claiming on both our parts. Afterward, as we lay tangled in his sheets, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my bare shoulder, I fought against the vulnerability threatening to overwhelm me. This changes things, I said quietly. Yes. He pressed a kiss to my temple. But not in the ways you fear. Doesn't it? You've given your enemies a new target. You were already a target. His arm tightened around me. Now you're just a more valuable one. I pushed up on my elbow to look at him. Is that supposed to be comforting? His smile was slow and genuine. It means I'll protect you even more fiercely. I can protect myself. I know. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. That's part of what He stopped, something vulnerable flashing in his eyes before he controlled it. Part of what makes you valuable. The word he'd almost said hung between us, unacknowledged but impossible to ignore. I lay my head back on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, afraid of how much I wanted to hear that word completed. Love was a lie. Power was survival. I'd believed that my entire life. But as Raphael's breathing deepened into sleep, his arms still holding me close, I wondered if perhaps there was a third truth I hadn't considered. That power shared could be stronger than power hoarded. Everything changed after that night, and nothing changed at all. We still worked together during the day, maintaining a professional facade. I still gathered information, he still made decisions. But now our nights were spent together, alternating between his chambers and mine to maintain some pretense of propriety. The border conflict resolved exactly as we'd engineered. Our agents discovered evidence of mercenary involvement, allowing diplomatic channels to reopen. Raphael's position strengthened, and with it mine. Yet whispers began to circulate about the nature of our relationship. Lady Thornfield watched us with calculating eyes. Lord Keller made thinly veiled comments about foreign influence in the Duke's household. Even the king began to take notice, asking Raphael pointed questions about my background. They're trying to separate us, I said one night as we lay in bed, discussing the day's events. They've realized they can't defeat you directly, so they're targeting what they perceive as your weakness. Raphael's fingers traced the curve of my spine. Let them try. You're not concerned? About their schemes? Of course not. He shifted to look at me. About your safety? Increasingly. I frowned. I've faced worse threats than court gossip. It's not just gossip. He sat up, suddenly serious. I've intercepted communications between Lady Thornfield and agents from Pandora. They're planning something significant, and your name was mentioned. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. What kind of communications? Coded messages about removing a new influence that has corrupted my judgment. His jaw tightened. They don't yet know your background, but they're digging. If they discover you're from the Ash District, they'll use it to discredit both of us, I finished. the Duke's judgment compromised by a common-born manipulator. Worse, his voice hardened. They'll use it to justify removing you permanently. The threat should have frightened me. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Threats were familiar territory. Schemes and counterplots were the language I'd spoken my entire life. "Then we strike first," I said simply. Raphael's eyes glittered in the dim light. "What do you propose?" "Give me 3 days. I'll need access to your private messengers and a small amount of gold." He didn't hesitate. "Done. What's your plan?" I smiled, the old, sharp smile I'd worn in the Ash District. "The less you know, the more genuine your surprise will be." For 3 days, I disappeared into the shadows of my old life. I called in favors from contacts I'd maintained in the city. I sent messengers to places no noble would ever visit. I gathered evidence, fabricated documents, and wove a web of half-truths around Lady Thornfield and her allies. On the 4th day, I returned to the palace just before the king's weekly public audience, an event where citizens could bring petitions directly to the monarch, with the full court in attendance. Raphael's relief at my return was visible only in the slight relaxation of his shoulders as I took my place beside him in the great hall. He raised an eyebrow in silent question. I gave a small nod. The audience proceeded normally at first. Merchants disputed contracts. Landowners requested tax relief. A widow sought justice for her husband's murder. Then, as the session neared its end, a hooded figure approached the throne. "State your name and business," the royal herald commanded. The figure threw back their hood, revealing a thin man with nervous eyes, a man I'd paid handsomely for today's performance. "My name is Thomas Reed, Your Majesty, former secretary to Lady Thornfield." His voice carried clearly through the hall. "I come bearing evidence of treason." A gasp rippled through the court. Lady Thornfield, seated 3 rows ahead of us, stiffened visibly. "Treason is a serious charge," the king said gravely. "What evidence do you present?" Reed approached with a leather folio, which the guards inspected before passing it to the king. "Letters, Your Majesty. Correspondence between my former employer and agents of Pandara, arranging for the border incident and planning further disruptions." The king opened the folio, his expression darkening as he read. Lady Thornfield rose to her feet. "This is absurd. I've never seen this man before in my life." "Strange," I murmured to Raphael, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Isn't that the man who delivered messages to her estate last month?" Heads turned. Raphael's expression remained carefully neutral, but he added, "Indeed. I recall seeing him exit her carriage during the spring festival." The seeds of doubt planted, we watched as the king summoned Lady Thornfield forward. The documents in the folio, a masterful combination of her actual correspondence, stolen by my contacts, and forged editions, painted a damning picture. "These are forgeries," she protested, but her voice wavered. "Perhaps," the king said coldly. "But we shall investigate thoroughly. Guards, escort Lady Thornfield to the royal apartments. She is to remain there until this matter is resolved." As she was led away, her gaze found mine across the crowded hall. In that moment, I saw recognition dawn in her eyes, not of the specific plot, but of the opponent who had outmaneuvered her. Raphael's hand found mine beneath the cover of our robes, a brief, tight squeeze. "Well played," he whispered. The aftermath was everything we could have hoped for. Lady Thornfield's associates, fearing similar exposure, distanced themselves from her and one another. The investigation uncovered genuine evidence of her communications with Pandara, if not the specific crimes we'd fabricated. Within a month, she was exiled from court, her lands and titles reduced. More importantly, the king, impressed by Raphael's instincts about her betrayal, expanded his authority, appointing him first advisor with powers nearly equal to the royal chancellor. Power flowed to Raphael, and through him, to me. Yet victory brought new complications. As Raphael's influence grew, so did the jealousy and fear of others at court. The king himself, while grateful, began to watch his powerful advisor with a wary eye. And I, the mysterious woman at the duke's side, became the subject of intense speculation. "The king has asked about marriage," Raphael told me one evening, as we sat before the fire in his chambers. My heart stuttered, then resumed at a faster pace. "Whose marriage?" "Mine." He stared into the flames, his profile sharp in the golden light. "He suggests it would stabilize my position and reassure the old families of my commitment to tradition." "A political alliance," I said carefully, ignoring the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. "It makes sense." His head turned, his eyes finding mine. "Does it?" "Of course. A noble bride from a powerful family would strengthen your position, produce heirs to secure your legacy." The words tasted like ash in my mouth. The king is right. "And what about you? Where do you fit in this sensible arrangement?" I forced a shrug. "I remain your advisor, your friend. Nothing needs to change in private. Nothing except that I would be swearing vows to another woman." His voice hardened. "Vows I would be breaking every night in your arms. Many nobles maintain separate arrangements. It wouldn't be unusual." "It wouldn't be unusual," I repeated, more to convince myself than him. "Your political marriage needn't affect us." Raphael stood suddenly, agitation evident in every line of his body. "Is that what you want? To remain my shadow lover while I play husband to someone else?" "What I want doesn't matter," I said sharply. "I've always understood the realities of our positions. You are a duke. I am common-born. The fact that we've had this much time together is already more than—" "Don't." He knelt before me, taking my hands in his. "Don't diminish what's between us." I looked away. "I'm being practical. The same practicality you valued in me." "Look at me, Vivienne." When I did, the intensity in his gaze nearly undid me. "I told the king I would consider marriage. I didn't tell him I would marry any woman he suggested." "But you will marry," I said softly. "You must. Your position requires it." "Yes." His thumbs traced circles on my palms. "I must marry. But I choose my own bride." My breath caught. "Raphael." "Marry me." The words hung between us, simple and impossible. "Be my duchess in truth, not just in private." I pulled my hands away, rising to put distance between us. "You can't be serious. The nobility would never accept it. The king would never approve. The nobility will accept what I tell them to accept." He followed me, refusing to let me retreat. "And the king needs me more than I need his approval." "This is madness," I whispered. "You would risk everything. Your position, your influence. For what? For me?" "Yes." No hesitation, no doubt in his voice. "For you. For us." "Why?" I demanded, anger flaring to protect my fragile heart. "Because I'm useful? Because I've helped you eliminate your enemies? Because I love you." The words fell like stones into still water, rippling through me. "Because you're the only person who has ever seen all of me and stayed." Love. The lie I'd warned myself against from the beginning. The weakness I couldn't afford. "You don't love me," I said harshly. "You don't even know me. Not truly." His expression hardened. "I know you grew up in the western section of the Ash District, not the eastern slums as you first told me. I know your mother died when you were 14, not 12. I know you worked for Lord Mercer's steward before coming to my attention, gathering information you later sold to his rivals. I froze. How did you know this? Did you think I wouldn't investigate you? I knew everything about you before I ever knocked on your door that night. He stepped closer. I know your secrets, Vivienne. I know the 3 men you killed to survive. I know about the child you couldn't save. I know everything. And I love you still. Tears burned behind my eyes. Then you're a fool. Perhaps. His hand cupped my cheek. But I'm a fool who would rather rule with you openly at my side than pretend you're merely my advisor or cousin or whatever other fiction we've created. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to surrender to the warmth spreading through my chest at his words. But years of hard-learned caution held me back. What if I don't love you? I challenged, a final defense. His smile was gentle, but knowing. Then you're a better liar than I gave you credit for. He was right. Somewhere between strategy sessions and midnight conversations, between political machinations and tangled sheets, I had fallen in love with Raphael Fairington. Not with the Duke, the Kingmaker, the power behind the throne, but with the man who read poetry late at night, who remembered how I took my tea, who trusted my judgment even when it contradicted his own. I loved him, and it terrified me more than any threat we'd faced. It won't work, I said quietly. Even if the king approved, which he won't, the court would never accept me. They'd undermine you, spread rumors, challenge your decisions. I would become your greatest vulnerability, or my greatest strength. He took my hands again. Think, Vivienne. The story of the Duke who married for love rather than advantage. The common-born duchess who brings a fresh perspective to court. With the right narrative, we don't just survive, we thrive. And if it fails, if they turn against you, his eyes glittered dangerously, then we'll do what we've always done. We'll identify our enemies, isolate them, and eliminate them. It was ruthless and practical and perfectly Raphael. And despite myself, I felt a matching ruthlessness rise within me. We were well matched in this, as in all things. I need time, I said finally, to think, to plan. He nodded, releasing my hands. Take all the time you need, but know this. I will have no bride but you. The king can suggest names until he's blue in the face. My choice is made. That night, I lay awake beside him, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. I had come to the palace as a survivor, determined to use the Duke's favor to secure my own position. Instead, I had found something I'd never believed in. Partnership, trust, perhaps even love. Could I risk it all on this impossible gamble? Could I trust that Raphael's power, our power together, would be enough to overcome centuries of tradition and prejudice? More importantly, could I trust that his love would endure once the challenge was met? Or would he eventually see me as a mistake, a liability, a reminder of his one great political miscalculation? Dawn found me still questioning, still weighing risks against rewards. But beneath the deliberation, a decision was forming, as inevitable as the tide. 3 days later, a messenger arrived from the king, summoning Raphael to a private audience. We both knew what it meant. The king was ready to present his candidates for my replacement, noble women of suitable breeding who could give Raphael a legitimate heir and strengthen his political alliances. Come with me, Raphael said as he prepared to leave. I raised an eyebrow. To a private audience with the king? That would hardly be appropriate. Since when has appropriateness concerned you? He smiled, offering his arm. Besides, what I have to say to His Majesty concerns you directly. My heart hammered against my ribs. You're going to tell him. I am. Today? Without preparation? Without softening the ground? Sometimes the direct approach is best. His confidence was either admirable or delusional, perhaps both. Are you with me, Vivienne? The question carried weight beyond this moment, beyond this decision. Was I with him, truly with him, for whatever came next? The calculated risk, the bold move, the potential fall? I took his arm. Always. The king received us in his private study, his initial surprise at my presence quickly masked by years of diplomatic training. He was a tall man, still handsome despite approaching 50, with the same sharp intelligence in his eyes that I admired in Raphael. Your Majesty, Raphael bowed, and I sank into a deep curtsy beside him. Thank you for receiving us. Us? The king's gaze flicked between us. I wasn't aware Lady Vivienne was included in my summons. What I have to discuss affects her directly. Raphael's voice was calm, respectful, but with an underlying firmness that couldn't be missed. The king settled back in his chair, studying us with new interest. I see. Then by all means, proceed. You wish to discuss my marriage prospects, Raphael began. I've given the matter considerable thought, and I've made my choice. Have you indeed? The king's lips quirked. Without even hearing the names I've selected? I admit, I'm curious who has captured your attention so thoroughly. Raphael's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining openly. I intend to marry Lady Vivienne. Silence fell, heavy and charged. The king's expression remained neutral, but I caught the subtle widening of his eyes, the slight tension in his jaw. I see, he said finally. And does Lady Vivienne share this intention? All eyes turned to me. This was my moment to retreat, to claim surprise, to give us both an escape from this audacious plan. Instead, I met the king's gaze steadily. I do, Your Majesty. The king leaned forward, steepling his fingers. You understand, Duke Fairington, that while Lady Vivienne has proven herself a valuable advisor, there are considerations. The noble houses expect certain alliances. Your influence comes in part from your connections to the old families. My influence comes from results, Your Majesty, Raphael countered. From stability in your realm, from prosperity in your treasury, from peace at your borders, all of which Lady Vivienne has helped secure. The king's gaze sharpened. And you believe your marriage to her would strengthen these outcomes rather than weaken your position? I do, unequivocally. It is uncommon. Uncommon but not unprecedented, I interjected. Your own grandfather married a merchant's daughter. The Duke of Westmere married his secretary 3 decades ago. The Earl of Highcliffe married a commoner just last year. You've researched this thoroughly, the king observed, a hint of amusement in his voice. I research everything thoroughly, Your Majesty. It's why the Duke values my counsel. And apparently, more than your counsel. The king studied us for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. I suspected something of this nature when you insisted on bringing her to council meetings. Tell me, Duke Fairington, did you plan this from the beginning? When you first brought this woman from the Ash District to your palace? I froze, but Raphael's hand tightened on mine. You knew, Raphael said, neither confirming nor denying. Of course I knew. The king waved a dismissive hand. Nothing happens in my court without my knowledge. Lady Vivienne's remarkable rise from obscurity caught my attention early. I had her investigated. And you said nothing, I observed. Why would I? You proved yourself useful, intelligent, and loyal to the Duke. By extension, loyal to me. His eyes met mine. Your background concerned me less than your abilities. Relief washed through me, quickly replaced by wariness. This was too easy. Then you approve of our match? Raphael asked, equally cautious. I didn't say that. The king rose, moving to a window overlooking the palace gardens. The court will not be as understanding as I am. They will see it as a weakness to exploit. They will question your judgment, Duke Fairington. They will suggest that Lady Vivienne has used unnatural means to secure your affection. Let them try, Raphael said coldly. Indeed. The king turned back to us. And how would you handle such opposition? It was a test. I recognized it immediately, not just of our determination to marry, but of our political acumen, our ability to navigate the challenges that would follow. The same way we've handled all opposition, Your Majesty, I said before Raphael could answer. Strategically, some will be won over by courtesy and inclusion, others by subtle threats or financial incentives. The most problematic will find themselves distracted by personal troubles that mysteriously arise. The king's eyebrows rose. You speak openly of manipulation and threats in my presence? I speak honestly of political reality, I countered. The same reality you navigate daily. Would you prefer I pretend innocence? Another silence, weighted with possibility. Then the king smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his formal features. I can see why you're reluctant to let her go, Duke Fairington. He returned to his seat. Very well. I will not oppose your marriage. However, his tone hardened. I will not publicly endorse it either. You must manage the fallout yourselves. Prove that this union strengthens rather than weakens your position, and my support will follow. Thank you, Your Majesty. Raphael bowed deeply. Don't thank me yet, the king warned. The real challenge begins now. The court will not be kind to your common-born bride. They will test her, and by extension you. I straightened my shoulders. I've faced worse than courtly disdain, Your Majesty. I don't doubt it. His gaze was assessing, almost approving. Perhaps that's exactly what this court needs. Someone who understands real struggle, not just political games. As we left the royal apartments, Raphael pulled me into an alcove, his face alight with triumph. He didn't refuse. Better than that, he all but gave his blessing. Conditionally, I cautioned. And he's right about the challenges ahead. Challenges we'll face together. He cupped my face in his hands. Tell me now, Vivienne. No more evasions. Will you be my wife, my duchess, my partner in everything? Looking into his eyes, I found my final fears dissolving. This man had seen the worst of me, my calculations, my manipulations, my ruthlessness, and loved me not despite these qualities but because of them. He didn't want to tame me or change me. He wanted to rule beside me. And I, who had never wanted to submit to anyone, found I wanted to stand with him. Yes, I said simply, I will. His kiss was fierce and possessive, a promise of the battle and the victory to come. Our wedding 3 months later was a statement in itself. Neither the quiet, hasty ceremony my critics expected, nor the excessive display that would suggest insecurity. Just the right balance of tradition and innovation, held in the palace gardens with the king himself in attendance. The nobility came, some reluctantly, others with curiosity. I wore a gown of midnight blue rather than traditional white, with a corona of stars in my hair rather than the expected flowers. Small rebellions, carefully calculated to establish my identity without causing unnecessary offense. Raphael watched me approach the altar with naked adoration, not attempting to hide his feelings. Let the court see, his expression said. Let them understand that this was no political arrangement, but a true union. When we spoke our vows, they echoed with meanings only we fully understood. When I promised to stand with him against all enemies, when he vowed to share not just his name but his power, we were affirming the partnership we'd already forged. That night, in the privacy of what were now our shared chambers, Raphael presented me with a gift, a small ornate dagger with a handle of polished obsidian. "A strange wedding gift," I observed, testing the blade's edge with my thumb. He smiled. "I thought about jewels, but they seemed inadequate. This seemed more us." I laughed, delighted by his understanding. "It's perfect." "Like you," he murmured, drawing me close. "My queen." "I believe the correct title is Duchess," I teased. His eyes darkened with intensity. "You were supposed to be my pawn, Vivienne. Instead, you became my queen, in every way that matters." As his lips claimed mine, I knew there would be battles ahead, political enemies to outmaneuver, social barriers to break, perhaps even physical threats to overcome. But for the first time in my life, I faced the future without fear. I had found something stronger than survival, something more reliable than power alone. I had found love in the arms of the only man who had ever truly seen me, the man who had made me not just his bride, but his queen. And together, we would be unstoppable.